The Auburn Tigers are number one again. But hey, you knew that already. Welcome on into the Auburn Express, powered by the War Report. I'm your host, Mike G, and thank you so much for giving us a listen today. Joining me as he does every week to talk about his SEC Unfiltered Power Rankings is my good friend, Dave Shoemate. Dave, we had some movement in the conference this week.
We did. We had a big move down one spot at the top.
Yeah.
It wasn't Auburn fans. Don't freak out.
Auburn takes care of business this week, entering their seventh straight week at number one in the AP. This is a remarkable run that we're witnessing by the Auburn Tigers. But hey, let's jump into the rankings. As always, we'll start with last week's rankings. Last week, Dave, you had Auburn at number one, Alabama at 2, Florida at 3, Texas A&M at 4. You had the fraud Tigers at 5, Tennessee at 6, Mississippi State at 7, Ole Miss at 8, Vandy at 9, Kentucky at 10. This conference is crazy this year. I don't disagree with this ranking, but I think Kentucky at 10 underscores how crazy the conference is this year. Arkansas at 11, they had a big win this week. And Texas at 12, rounding out your top 16, Georgia, LSU, Oklahoma, South Carolina. And moving to this week, the Auburn Tigers at 1 again. Florida moves up. Bama moves back, albeit not far. We'll talk about that one in a second. Tennessee at 4. Missouri at 5. They beat Bama, but they lost to Arkansas. And I'm not sure which one should weigh more, but we'll talk about that in a second. Texas A&M drops from 4 to 6 in this week's SEC Unfiltered Power Rankings. Kentucky makes the large jump from 10 to 7. State moves back a spot to 8. Ole Miss moves back a spot to 9. You've got Vanderbilt at 10. They drop back a spot. Arkansas at 11, as they were last week. Georgia jumps up a spot. Texas moves back a spot. And then LSU, Oklahoma, South Carolina at the bottom of the rankings here. Let's start with, I think, the most intriguing conversation here, which is Florida and Alabama.
Yeah.
You moved the Gators ahead of the Tide. Talk to me about this, my friend. I did it pain you a little bit when you had to move that thing in Canva and just threw the Tide over at 3?
I mean, I'd be honest. I think it was fair. I think you could have done it last week, and you wouldn't have gotten any argument from me at all.
Okay.
I think Bama this past week, again, solid week. I mean, at Missouri, and I'll be honest with you, I think at Missouri last Wednesday night for Alabama, the way Missouri played, they may have beaten anybody in the league, and certainly if you're going to say they're going to beat anybody in the SEC, especially this year's SEC, it's probably they could beat anyone on a given night. Played really well. I think they've been playing well. Again, I mean, Auburn saw it firsthand. Arkansas is playing pretty good basketball right now. They went and I thought they played well, put their best foot forward against Auburn in the midweek, and then came and got a mutt. They had to have it. They had to have it to try to those 7 wins. They had to beat Missouri at home. Missouri coming off the big win against Alabama wasn't too shocking. Again, we know it's hard as hell to go win on the road in this league. But really, Alabama, Florida here. Again, we got that game coming up a week from tomorrow night, actually, in Tuscaloosa, Cohen Coliseum. So we'll see it firsthand. I don't know, though. I just think Florida right now, with the edge defensively, I got to give it to Florida. In NCAA tournament, it may concern me a little bit with Florida defensively, but I think they are better than Alabama. And I think they arguably have the best, again, when they're all healthy, the best backcourt, I think, in the league when you factor in Walter Clayton, Elijah Martin, and Will Richard as well. Again, that's when they're all healthy. I just like their defensive presence, their bigger, longer guards right now. And I think they have a better presence down in the front court as well. So I got to give them the nod to over Alabama. But I'll say this, but Auburn fans are used to me talking about Auburn's floor. And I think Auburn's got the highest floor in college basketball, and there's a big gap. And I think we saw it this past week. Auburn didn't shoot well against Arkansas. They didn't shoot well against Georgia. Still, did we ever really think they were going to drop those games? Were they close? Yeah. But I think, again, the league's good, night in, night out. Georgia had a phenomenal defensive game plan against Auburn.
They played them tough the first time in Athens.
Yeah. I mean, Mike White usually has a pretty good game plan against Bruce Pearl at Auburn. He usually has a really good game plan. Bruce Pearl in his post-game press conference acknowledged that, told Mike White, hey, y'all done stuff we hadn't seen all year, and tip of the cap to you. So I think you got to acknowledge Georgia playing one of their better games, especially in the road, and you factor it's at Neville Arena, a hard place to go win. I think, again, I talk about the Auburn floor all the time. No one's even, I think, in the stratosphere of them where they can beat you in different ways. I still say we saw it in the LSU game for Florida on Saturday. Their ceiling in Florida. I mean, they were down 7.5 in Baton Rouge, and then I think they went out and scored them by like 24, I think, in the second half to kind of just win going away and dominate the second half. That's Florida to me. They get a very high ceiling, low floor at times. And maybe Bama has a little bit of a higher floor than them. I think the ceiling's about the same for both those teams. But I think just going over the last 2 weeks, Florida's been coming on strong, playing extremely well. They're deserving of this, especially with the way Alabama started games the last 3 games.
Would it be fair to say that Florida owns the best win in the country over Auburn and Neville?
I think at this point, yeah. I mean, yeah. I don't even think it's really that close, probably, except maybe Duke's win over Auburn at home would probably be the next one. I mean, any win over Auburn, obviously, this year. Again, the 2 wins or Auburn's 2 losses are probably the best wins in the league. But yeah, certainly Florida definitely has that. When you factor in where that game was played, yeah, for sure. Again, that's part of the reason why Florida's going to get the nod as well right now. I mean, like we mentioned, I think we got 3 legit national title contenders in this league. I think it's Auburn, obviously. Auburn speaks for itself. And then Florida, and I think it's Alabama. If any other SEC team, as good as the league is this year, Mike, if any of the other SEC teams won it all, I'd be a little surprised. Would you?
Yeah, agreed. Look, Dave, come to the altar with me here for a second, and let's talk about Missouri. They post 110 on Alabama and then turn around and lose to Arkansas.
Yeah.
After having a lead at halftime. What do you make of Missouri this year? Are these guys for real? I mean, they've had a good stretch in conference, but I think that I think the mystique around teams that they do what Auburn is doing is that you win week in and week out, right? You're finding ways to win. You're winning games that you probably shouldn't win, like when Auburn played Arkansas.
Yeah.
They could have easily lost that game, but they didn't. Arkansas was 18 down to Bama, came back, made it a game. But Alabama got the win. Missouri had the lead, gave it up, they lose. They're the ones that fall to Arkansas. They're frauds in my mind. They're going to embarrass the conference in the tournament, and they're going to be a mid-seed that gets knocked out early. I watched a TikTok from the Locked On Mizzou pod, where the guy was like, Missouri has a path to a number 1 seed. I couldn't help myself. I just started typing. I was like, buddy, there's no path to a number 1 seed.
Missouri. I'll have whatever our guy on Locked On's drinking or smoking, whatever he's having in my weekend. But you're right. A 1 seed. I mean, no, Missouri would be fired up to have a 3 seed. I think they're firmly on that 4 seed, 5 seed kind of line for the NCAA tournament.
Yeah.
Again, I'm probably a little higher on Missouri with you, but I do think you're right on this, Mike. I'll agree with you. They would be that team, in my opinion, that would be on. If you told me a top 5 seed in the NCAA tournament from the SEC got upset first weekend, Missouri would be right in that. Yeah. But I do think they're a pretty deep team. It will be interesting. So Auburn played them first game of conference play, right? In Auburn?
They mopped them up. They mopped them up by 16.
I think Missouri's gotten better. Again, no bad losses. I mean, at Texas would definitely be their most questionable, but I mean, at Tennessee, A&M on a last-second shot by Manny Obaseki, he's nothing to be upset with. And then at Arkansas, but I will say, I think Arkansas is playing better basketball right now with their backs against the wall. Again, they tried to go steal one at Auburn. Again, wasn't Auburn's greatest effort coming off the Alabama win. Kind of to be expected. But I think Arkansas really needed that game more against Missouri on Saturday. But to your point, Mike, I mean, Missouri had that game in control. I mean, they were up at halftime. Disappointing loss from them. I think they have a very manageable schedule down the stretch, though. So I think they're going to rack up some wins. I mean, you got South Carolina at home this week, at Vandy, which they could easily lose that game. It's been a house of horrors for a lot of teams this year. But at Oklahoma, very winnable, and Kentucky at home. It's a very winnable game, depending how Kentucky is from a health perspective. But I think they're a very deep team. They all understand their roles. They're relentless, especially at home. When they're playing at home, very, very, very tough out. You can say that about a lot of teams this year, but I think specifically them, their style of play invites that crowd to be something to be excited about. You saw it for the
Yeah.
Alabama game. But I'm with you. On a neutral floor, they would be that team that would fit a little bit in that category, maybe with like an Ole Miss, Mississippi State as well, who could get upset in the NCAA tournament. I'm a little higher on Missouri than you, but I could see where your skepticism would be.
Yeah, look, but the whole conversation around the 1 seed, I'm like, buddy, what are you smoking?
No, dude, I don't even think they're in those. I mean, they can win out. They wouldn't get a 1 seed.
For sure. Like, what are you smoking? Maybe something from the Rogue Shop, Dave. Visit rogueshop.com if you want delusions of Missouri making number 1 seed in the NCAA tournament. Use code report to get 15% off that delusion. Rogueshop.com, longtime sponsors of the War Report. We appreciate them for sponsoring this segment. Also, this segment is brought to you by our friends at Golden's Cast Iron. Visit goldenscastiron.com/WR and use code Get Your Weight Up for 15% off your weights and code TWR for $65 off fire pits and Kamado grills. The spring is here. Golden's Cast Iron has you covered with great lifelong products. Got my dad the Kamado grill for Father's Day. We've been grilling around it for 2 years now. Just a fantastic partnership we have with them. Again, if you're looking for a product that will last you a lifetime, Golden's Cast Iron has you covered. goldenscastiron.com/WR. Use those codes down there to make sure you get your discount on your Golden's Cast Iron product. Let's talk about the Auburn Tigers here. They are number 1 for the 7th week straight. They're number 1 in the net. They're number 1 in every ranking that matters. If you don't have the Auburn Tigers number 1, you are irrelevant. You don't matter. Auburn is I heard an ESPN analyst say this week that the gap between Auburn and the rest of the field for the number 1 overall seed right now is very wide, Dave.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I think Auburn could probably afford 3 losses, and that's where you probably start talking about potentially changing it.
Right. Yeah, I think at this point in the season, we are deep into the season now, and that loss that you thought would have come the last time Auburn was number 1 and did come hasn't come. Right. Yeah. Right. You've got probably the 2 best losses in the country to 2 teams currently in the top 5, 1 at home, 1 on the road, and you've continued to win. Now, there have been some games where Auburn could have lost it again. Big Z for Arkansas going 0 for 10. That won't happen again the rest of his time at Arkansas. He will not go 0 for 10. 0 for 9 from 3 in a game that they lost by 7? Yeah. At Wild. So that won't happen again. And if you're Auburn, you're lucky he had a cold night because it wasn't like they were forcing those missed shots. He missed a lot of open looks. John Calipari noted that to us in the post-game press conference, but also what Calipari noted, I asked him about the strength of the SEC this year, and he said there's not been a single other season in the last 35 years like what we're watching in the SEC this year in any conference. High praise from John Calipari, a man who's won championships and won at the highest levels of college basketball. Auburn is doing something special this year. I want to talk about that number 1 overall seed again. To me, I don't know how they fall off it at this point, other than maybe losing their last 4 games.
Just a complete meltdown, which I would be shocked if we saw that.
Yeah. They have. I
think right now people are trying to find reasons just to. Yeah, did Auburn probably not play their best week of the season this past week? Yeah, sure, but they're still 2-0, and I think a little bit people are kind of comparing them to themselves, to their own standard this year, right? This team that we saw before this last week against Arkansas and Georgia, I think people were comparing them to that and kind of trying to poke holes. And I mean, again, you're not going to shoot 40% every night from the field, but I think it's to the point. It's why Auburn is the favorite to go win the national championship, is because they can win games when they don't shoot well, because their floor is so high, and the way they force turnovers, the way they play defense, everyone plays within their role. So I think, again, some people are looking to poke holes to it. I mean, if I'm an Auburn fan, I kind of find it comforting knowing we could maybe hey, that 8-9 game in the second round on Sunday night of the NCAA tournament, we may only shoot 25% from 3, but you know what? We go get an 8-point win, survive and advance, because if we didn't play good defense, like in Alabama or something, we could lose that game. And again, I think that's the total difference right there, is just the ceiling floor from a perspective defensively. Auburn doesn't shoot great. You know what? Something else picks up the slack. And again, it's going to have to be a complete effort by someone to, I think, beat them in a game. And again, it's a 1-game elimination NCAA tournament. Anything can happen. But I think, it would give me a little more comfort that if I was an Auburn team, you beat potentially 2 NCAA tournament teams with probably your C game.
Yeah. Their final stretch is Ole Miss at home, at Kentucky, at Texas A&M, and then home versus Alabama. That is now unranked Ole Miss. They fell off of it after some losses there. Number 17, Kentucky. Number 12, Texas A&M. And number 6, Alabama to close. Now, the potential for that final game against Auburn and Alabama to be so meaningful in terms of that number 1 overall seed and, the SEC regular season title is enormous. Bama has the toughest path. They got their home versus Mississippi State. They're at Tennessee. They're home versus Florida. And then they're on the road at Auburn to end their season. That's 24-6, 2-1.
Yeah. No, those last 3 games. That's why I think tomorrow for Alabama is, again, it's all first world problems. They're fighting for a 1 seed. But if you want to stay in the 1 seed race, because again, what Tennessee and Florida are doing, you have to win tomorrow against Mississippi State at home. They should win that team. You beat on the road. Again, you should win that game. Then the real stretch starts, and you're playing teams. Take Auburn out of it. You're playing teams in Tennessee and Florida that you are competing for the 1 seed in. And I think you would agree with me, Mike. I think a lot of people are saying, hey, the SEC is going to get 13. They're going to get 3 out of the 4 1 seeds. Yeah, I'm starting to subscribe. I don't think the NCAA tournament committee does not want to put 3 SEC teams on that 1 seed line. Houston is going to get a 1 seed if they win the NCAA tournament. I think it's going to be – I really think at this point – NCAA, the Big 12. I think it's Auburn's a 1 seed. Duke will be a 1 seed, and Houston will be a 1 seed. And I think for that last spot, you're having Alabama, Florida. And then I think a little bit of a gap because Tennessee is still 2 games back of both those teams in the SEC standings. That's why I think Saturday's game when Bama goes to Knoxville is so big for both teams there. I think Tennessee's that next team potentially fighting for that 1 spot, especially after the win they had Saturday against College Station. So, again, people talk about 3. I don't think the committee wants to do that. I don't think they're going to penalize Houston for winning the Big 12 regular season. I think they're going to get a 1 seed. So, I think that's why these next 2 games, Auburn aside, because, again, I think Auburn's going to wrap up the SEC before it even gets to that Alabama game. So, I think that's just going to be, again, both teams will want to win that. Again, we've heard Bruce say, we want to sweep these guys. I think Bama's bigger games are Tennessee on Saturday, Florida next Wednesday night in Tuscaloosa for a 1. You may be playing. Those 2 games for Bama, they have to at least split them, I think, to get one of those 1 seeds.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. Right now, Auburn is in the driver's seat in terms of winning the SEC outright. Win all your games.
Mike, what's the magic number now for Auburn? 3? Is it a combination of 3 wins or 3 losses of Bama and Florida? I think Auburn wins it.
I think if you win 3 and you have 1 loss from Bama, it's over.
Yeah, it's over. So what? They got Ole Miss midweek at Kentucky. And then at A&M, I think they can essentially wrap it up if they just go 2-0 this week.
Yeah, it's going to be if the other teams lose a game, it's going to be really, really tough. They've got to make up some ground here.
And I don't think Bama wins out until Auburn. I don't think Bama's rolling. I don't think they're.
Yeah, me neither.
I think they'll beat State. If you made me bet, I think they get one of Tennessee, Florida, but I don't think they win both.
Right. Yeah, the way Auburn's played, they haven't lost a road game in the SEC so far this year. So they're tough on the road. My War Report counterparts seem to be worried about at Texas A&M as a potential pitfall for Auburn.
Kentucky, I don't think is going to be healthy enough. Because you see like Lamont Butler, I saw Pope said, or somebody, I think, what's his name? Guy does the KSR, Matt Jones over there was saying he talked to Pope, and Pope was like, they may bring Lamont Butler back against Auburn, but they're like, for sure, Jackson Robinson's out till their LSU game. So, if Kentucky's not at full strength, then I don't care where that game is. They're not going to beat Auburn, I don't think.
Yeah, it's gonna be interesting, compelling stuff. Lots of great games down the stretch in today's SEC, the best conference in college basketball right now, and the best guys covering it. SEC Unfiltered. Dave, before we get out of here, tell people where they can find you.
Yeah, guys, go give us a follow at the SEC Unfiltered channel on YouTube. Again, you can follow me at Dave Shoemate SEC. Guys, again, all the best entity around covering all 16 teams in the SEC, football, men's basketball, and then Chris Phillips and Harrison Fant carrying you through the start of baseball season, obviously. So I know the Auburn fans are fired up about what Butch and the boys are putting on the diamond this year. But, yeah, guys, go like, subscribe, hit that notification bell. Outside of what you're listening to right now with the War Report, Mike Gittins and the boys, I feel like we're the next best thing around. So appreciate you guys listening. I always appreciate Mike having me on every week.
Guys, that's it for another great edition of the Auburn Express, powered by the War Report, with my guy Dave Shoemate from SEC Unfiltered. If you want more content like this, please hit like and subscribe. We are the War Report on every social media platform, TW Report on TikTok. We're signing off, and as always, we're Eagles.